If you have a question, please put your name in the chat. We'll start with Ben.
Chris, just obviously it's been a little while since we saw Brandon Smith on the mound. Just how's he looking, and what do you kind of see his role as? I know we heard he might be in the bullpen last year. He started some games his first year. I guess just where do you see him fitting in?
And he's better every time we see him. This weekend, he throws a ton of strikes. He was 89-91, pitched 2 innings. I think he'll throw another 2 innings this week. I think early on you'll see him in the bullpen because we got to get him back out, got to get him acclimated. But I think over time you could see him fall into a starter role. I mean, he has that type of stuff. His body is stronger than ever going through rehab. This kid works, and his body's in great shape, but his arm's working good. We spoke about it last week, and I think he's pretty fired up and positive about it. But that's just another veteran arm we get to run out there.
And just quickly, in terms of that, are there any guys that may miss opening weekend right now that aren't on track to be ready, or any kind of major injuries to report early?
We have no major injuries right now, knock on wood. I just have a couple guys that may be a week or two behind. So I think they'll be ready to go, but we'll have to figure that out over the next 2 weeks. I hope this weather doesn't slow us down, because sometimes if a guy's coming back, you hate to run him out there in cold weather. So, but right now, we knock on wood, we don't have any major injuries. We got everybody kind of on board. We have a couple guys that are just a week or so behind.
We'll go to Joel.
Hey, Chris. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, about the pitching staff and the depth you have there. I'm just curious, from a position player standpoint, obviously you know your team a lot better than we do. I think I could probably sketch out what I think maybe a starting 9 would look like and things, but I'm just curious, like, where are the position battles that you see from a position player standpoint? Are there any? Are you kind of set in your mind right now with who you think would be that starting 9? And I guess a two-parter there, how concerned are you about replacing the production of Foscue and Westberg in the middle of that order?
Well, I'm always concerned with that when I have to fill out the lineup card. You don't have 2 guys like that, very often in your career. So replacing them will be tough. Like I've told people, you don't replace them one-on-one. You replace them with an accumulation of everybody around them. So I think everybody picks up a little bit of their production, even though we have some really good players in those spots that I'm excited about. But, our position battles, and left field's a big position battle going on right now. It could be a rotation, some lefts, some rights. Braylon Skinner's, come back and kind of did what he did at the end of the fall. Pretty electric baseball player. Still got to go out there and prove it. Brandon Pimentel. So if we want to play a left-hander, Brad Cumbest, has come back, and Brad's, got 5 at bats under his belt now. So just coming out from football is always a harder transition with some of those guys, and trying to get people involved in the outfield. Third base for us is a big transition right now too. So we don't know, guys at third. You got a handful of guys at third, and that battle may play out where it's just one guy plays against lefts and rights, and see who can win the job, who's going to play there late in the game. So we're trying to figure out a lot of those pieces. Like you said, there's some. Josh Hatcher's going to play first base. Tanner Allen's going to play right. We got certain guys that we know, and being an older, more mature lineup. But we do still have some battles. And then DH role is big for us too right now. I think the DH role is huge because as we try to line up lefts versus rights, especially going into the first couple weekends, trying to figure out, who we'd put in the lineup. And lineup for me is the hardest part right now. I keep thinking of lineup and how we're going to hit some guys in our order. So I'm trying to figure that out, using some different lineups every day as we play.
We'll go to David.
Coach, you talk about the players dealing with this long absence. What's it like in the coaching office getting ready to finally get a season going?
It's exciting. So it's even more exciting for our wives. I think our wives are glad we're at work. So it's been a long year. And I tell you, just being back, and our first day back, when you saw all the trucks pull up and all the guys show up, we lived through those guys. I mean, that's the nice part. The youth, I mean, they keep you young. And for us, we're able to see the guys, hang out with the guys, practice. It's an enjoyable group. They like to work. And so that's been a lot of fun from them, just being able to get back and get going. And it'll be fun to have another opponent in the other dugout. I mean, that's been the longest point of my career for the last 26 years. Been the longest, time that we haven't competed against somebody else. So it's just going to be a really competitive first weekend. So be careful what you wish for.
Now, we're going to talk to Coach Gotro in just a little bit about the offense and other things, but you looking at the offense, you mentioned kind of a plain offense in that regard, but you showed some pop this past weekend as well in scrimmages. Do you think this offense really has capability both to hit for power, but also hit for average?
I do. As we build our offense and we build our scheme here, we want to be well-rounded. So we don't, we'd like to be in the middle of the pack of the SEC in home runs. But man, we'd really like to be a team that gets on base, that moves the baseball, that puts pressure on you, that doesn't strike out. So there's a blend there for us of trying to put together both. But we did. We had some guys. I think we had 4 home runs on Saturday with our group. One on Sunday, maybe another one. So we got some guys with pop. Sometimes they don't sell out. I think Tanner Allen would hit a lot more home runs for you if he just tried to pull the ball down the right field line. But those 10 doubles he gives you in the backside gap with runners on base, you lose some of that sometimes. So I think we have a nice blend. I think you'll see us. We have some guys that can hit for power. I mean, Logan Tanner's a kid who's got as much power, as he's just got to be able to get it off in the real games. And I think we'll see that as the spring goes on.
John?
Hey, Chris, how's it going, man? First thing, I guess, how emotional do you think opening day is going to be for you and your guys? Last year you kind of just had the season slipped away from you. I mean, how emotional do you think when you?
I think it'll be pretty fired up. I mean, we took the first game of the day, so we're jumping out there playing one of the first games in college baseball in that environment against that opponent. There's always butterflies. There's always nervousness. I think after the first 2 or 3 innings, hopefully we can settle down and play Mississippi State baseball. But I think it'll be pretty exciting. I think it'll be our guys are amped. I mean, they're ready. Usually in preseason training, you get tired of playing each other about the second or third week. I feel like our guys, even somebody made a comment this weekend, we're ready to play somebody else. We're ready to strap it on with somebody else. And so I think that piece of that excitement, that nervous energy, it'll be there that, as we head on that plane and head to Dallas for that tournament.
Based on the errorless baseball that you just said, that has to probably be pretty soothing considering how long the break was for your guys to see them come back playing so well. Someone specifically I wanted to ask about was Christian, all the hype surrounding him this season. How do you think he treated the off-season plans and all of that stuff? Where do you think he currently stands and his ceiling as a player?
Well, he had a good offseason. He did a lot of training when he went home too. So he had a good fall. But the challenge is not to be satisfied where we're at, not to be status quo, to push it forward. And so I think he went home over the break. I mean, his velo's been a little bit more in his pins and everything else, his arm strength. I think he's not satisfied where everybody says he's at. He's trying to move up and be better. And that's what the great ones do. And so for him, he had a good outing this past weekend. Looking forward to him just, getting his, the key for us is getting his pitch count up in this preseason time. And he's one of those guys that's just such a high level of pitchability. The guy really knows how to pitch. It's an upper level breaking ball. It's a really good changeup. His analytics really match up. He tunnels the ball really well. And so I think, with him, you're going to see a lot of that come through. But he's, I'm proud of him in the fact that he hadn't sat back and said, hey, if I could just be what I was last year, I'll be all right. His mindset's been, I got to be better. I want to be better. I want to keep pushing forward. You'll see that with a lot of our arms. It's not coach speak. It's just, we have a handful of guys. Those guys are pushing each other right now. Those guys are trying to be, each one wants to be the ace of the staff. And so we have a really good contingent there of pitchers and competition building.
Go to Brian.
Coach, you think about your second-year players, the guys who were freshmen last season. They've got the extra year in the program, but they don't have the at-bats and they don't have the innings that you would normally expect going freshman to sophomore. From just a developmental standpoint, how are guys like Logan Tanner, Cameron James, and Landon Sims looking as compared to what you would see from a normal first to second-year player?
Well, and I don't want to overhype our sophomores. They're really freshmen, but they were freshmen last year. But we feel like we have one of the better sophomore groups in the country. And I really challenged them because it's a big group. They're talented. And like you said, there's more guys in there across the board of that soft. People don't know about Casey Hunt or Xavier Lovett or, some of those different guys that we have in that class. We have a really special group. But like I keep telling them, you've never played an SEC game. People rave about our pitching staff. Man, I love our pitching staff. out of our 3 starters that we had there at the end of the year last year, we have 1 inning in SEC play. So that's the challenge for us, is to be able to jump out there, build momentum in this non-conference part of our schedule, and then be able to take that into SEC play. But I really like those guys have been really good. Logan Tanner, special catcher. Cameron James is playing shortstop for us every day right now, and has really made huge jumps offensively. I'm excited about him. Landon Sims, he's our X Factor guy. I mean, he can do everything. As talented as probably anybody on our staff, but and he's just a tough, hard-nosed kid. I feel comfortable running him out there in any situation. So those guys have been really good. We just got to see how they handle a full season.
Robbie?
Coach, we haven't talked a whole lot about Scotty DeBrule, and he was a guy that came in, one of the top hitters in college baseball, and he's taken over at second base, I guess, or being inserted in that lineup. What's your thoughts on what he's been able to do in the offseason, and how do you kind of see him meshing with what you want to do from a hitting standpoint?
Yeah, he's been this past weekend he went 0 for 8, so I'm worried about him. But he actually had 3 or 4 hard hit balls right at people. So, but he won our yellow jersey for our best defender, making great plays everywhere. He's a real hitter, so we give him a hard time when he goes 0 for 8. But he's a guy who can. He's played a lot of college baseball, played summer baseball, and so he's our biggest message to him over that long break. It took him a while to get started last fall. His first couple of weeks were very okay. His last 2 weeks with us, he was one of our better players on the field in the fall in our World Series. And he's come back in a lot better shape, ready to go, playing really fast on the field. He can really move for, so he's going to steal some bases. He's going to cover covers that 4-hole really well in our scrimmages. And then, I talked about it earlier. He's one of my pieces. I don't know where he's falling in our lineup right now. I mean, he literally could hit leadoff all the way down to 6. I mean, he's hit cleanup at times, in college. So, trying to figure out where we're going to play him and where we're going to put him. I know where I'm going to play him. I'm playing him at second, but where he's going to hit in the lineup is something I'm still trying to figure out. And that may change all year long, depending on who we're playing, who's hot, who's not. But he gives us a lot of versatility.
Good adult.
Hey, Coach, you kind of touched on this a minute ago with Brian, but in terms of evaluation, what all do you miss out on with an entire SEC schedule getting canceled like it was last year?
I think what we missed out on is the growth of the players. A lot of them that going through that grind of the SEC, understanding what that's all about, and it's a grind. My first year here, I thought I figured it out. I've been coaching for 20-something years, and it was a grind. Coach Gotro always calls it a league of no mercy. You play one team, you wake up on Monday and we got to play the other one. You're just playing in such a hard league and a division that I think that experience piece for our kids, and then their chance to just play. And then they usually go through it. They get a reset in the summer, and they get a chance to go out and have a really good summer if they struggled some during SEC play. And they lose both of those pieces for the most part. Some of our guys played some summer ball, but some didn't. So we're, fighting those 2 areas is, was tough for us. So, the experience side, handling it, they probably won't have to handle crazy crowds, but you have to get used to that playing in this league. So those are kind of the areas that I think we miss out on.
Go back to Ben.
Chris, you kind of touched on the pitching staff, but just in terms of that, do you have an opening day starter in mind yet, or is that still being figured out?
I do not. We're trying to figure out how we match up, and we got to figure out how guys get through their work. So, just knowing, these days we're having to move around. We've already had to move around a scrimmage this week. So trying to figure everything as we get closer. We'll announce that probably Monday or Tuesday of game week. We'll have a pretty good idea.
I mean, given y'all are playing 3 different teams, I mean, does this look different than, say, like just Friday, Saturday, Sunday guy than in a normal weekend?
It does, because we're trying to see, is there a really big matchup piece in there? Is there a better day to throw the lefty? Is there a better day to match our guys up? So that we're kind of looking at it that way. If a normal weekend we're playing one team, it would probably be a little bit more set a little earlier. But for us, we're trying to wait and do a little bit of scouting. We're in a heavy scouting piece right now, trying to watch and see what these guys have done in the past.
And then just one quick follow-up. In terms of Christian, I know you've had a lot of really good pitchers just in your time at Mississippi State and the Jonathan Stevers of the world in Indiana and others. But just how does he compare to guys that you've had in the past? Or is there anyone that he's similar like or profiles like, or how is he maybe different?
Well, I think with Christian, there's just been a maturity the whole time he's been here. He showed up very mature. It's it's a big body lefty that knows how to pitch. And if you meet Christian off the field, it's like the nicest kid ever. And then all of a sudden on game day, he turns into he's a tough competitor. You don't realize how tough he is. And so I think that's what we've seen as we've run him out there and done. His stuff continues to grow. There's probably some guys who'll throw harder or some things like that, but his total package is pretty special. And I think comp wise, I really don't have a real comp for him, but I think he's got a chance to be one of the better left-handers out there in the country.
Go back to Joel.
Chris, I wanted to follow up real quick. A minute ago, you were talking about third base being one of those battles. Obviously, I guess Landon Jordan would be in the mix there. Maybe is Kellum Clark. Who am I kind of missing there? Who's kind of in that third base battle?
Guys, it's you got Kellum Clark, big freshman from Brandon, who's worked really hard to play over there. You got Landon Jordan, who Landon's an older player. He's played there some for us in his career. Had a really good summer last summer. I think he was the hitter of the league or whatever last summer in his league down by his home. You got Tanner Leggett, who's been a swing guy for us, who's a right-handed hitter. And then we have Lane Forsythe. Lane is a real swing guy for us. Lane is a young freshman. But, man, he can really, really defend. And he plays short a lot right now, but we're bouncing him around, playing some second, playing some third, making sure that he's ready to go. As good of a young defender, I've been around in a long time. Just got a chance to do some special things from the defensive standpoint. And he's a right-handed hitter too. So depending on who's hot, who's not, who we're facing, you could see us play 3 third basemen in a game sometimes. I don't know. But, those guys are all competing right now. They're all playing well. So it's going to make it a tough decision for me.
And was going to ask quickly too about, we talk about your weekend guys a lot, but midweek, I know maybe Houston Harding, or I know you'd flirted a little bit back in the fall with Landon Sims, maybe getting some starts and things. I don't know if that's something that's still ongoing, but just curious about kind of who's your top 2 or 3 midweek guys you think right now.
Well, I told our coaching staff we're not going to worry about Tuesday and Wednesday this for opening weekend. Everybody's on hand. Everybody's ready to go. But I think our normal midweek guys, like you mentioned, Houston Harding is a midweek possibility. We have another very talented left-handed pitcher that people haven't seen named Cam Tuller. Cam has an opportunity to be a midweek starter or a weekend starter at some point, another left-handed pitcher. We got Carlisle Kostler, who pitched midweek for us and some of the weekends for us last year. And then we have our freshmen. So our freshman, Jackson Bristo's a guy who's made a really big jump as we gotten back from the break that could get some midweek starts. We just have to figure out, what's more advantageous for us to have one of those guys on the weekend, or do some of those midweek guys do we need that lefty out of the bullpen? Is that more important in SEC play? So, we have some nice options. I mean, the one thing we do is have some depth of that pitching staff. But those would be some of the guys that we'd look at probably right now.
We'll go to PJ.
Hey, Coach. So losing Foscue and Westberg last year to the MLB draft, there appears to be some need for senior leadership. How do you think guys like Josh, Tanner, Rowdy will fill that role?
Well, that's the blessing for us, is having those guys back. I mean, we're getting not only great players, but their maturity, their energy they bring, guys who've been through it. And I say that over and over, but guys that have been through it is, a really big piece. They've been there, they've done it. They've been to Omaha. They've played in, SEC, big Friday night games. So they do a great job. We also have, I guess Carlisle Kostler may be the oldest guy in college baseball, so experience for him. And then Spencer Price is right behind him, and Riley Self, and some of these older guys. And our rotation now of, with Sarantola and McLeod and some of those guys, they've been around a while too. So like I said earlier, we have a lot of experience. The chemistry piece has been great, especially being that, you worry about how close can your team be, how great a culture can you have when everybody's supposed to separate 6 feet and wear a mask and not be here and not be there. But our guys have done a great job with it. So I think we'll be fine in that aspect.
Awesome. And just one follow-up. Have you noticed any of those guys doing anything over this long off season to kind of help get those guys going? Anything extra over the top and, helping them out with programs or anything like that?
I just think, helping the younger guys out's been the biggest piece. I think with so many new guys in the program, you've seen some guys, kind of grab a young guy, and help him out or do something that way. But I think that's kind of they understand their roles inside their position groups mainly is where you see that. And I see, certain guys, you'll see a Cameron James and a Lane Forsythe working, and they're working together. Even though they're competing against each other, they're working together. Same thing with those pitchers on the pitching staff. The competition level is so high to pitch here right now. And those guys, as high as it is, you still see guys working together and helping each other out.
Good at John.
Chris, it's just kind of a quick follow-up to what Ben and Joel asked, but it sounds like you've got a couple starters kind of solidified in what you're trying to do between, Christian, Eric, Harding, and Week. But what's like a timeline that you would like to have kind of your starters established for days and what you're trying to do?
Well, I'm hoping it's that week before we start, and if everybody pitches good, you stay with it. I've been a big fan. I don't like to bounce our guys around a lot once we get started. So, we spent a whole fall working and getting after it. We're back right now. They get 3 starts here in the preseason. And then once we announce, I'd like to, feel like we can be in a pretty good rotation and go through it that way, for most of the season. It usually never ends up that way. Somebody gets scratched or somebody's not pitching good, and so you have to develop the other guys behind them. But I'd like to think that Monday, before we head out to Dallas, we should have a pretty good idea of rotation. And midweek starters will bounce. They're going to bounce depending on who we're playing, who had to pitch on the weekend. For us, the weekend, especially, our first 2 weekends, man, you jump out there and play that tournament in Texas, and then, Tulane's coming in here with a really good team too. And then we got some good midweeks coming. So we got a lot of work ahead of us, and winning those weekends are always huge.
We'll close it out with Ben.
Chris, obviously in a year with the shortened draft and all, you bring back obviously the juniors, but guys like Kellum and Jackson Fristow maybe normally wouldn't make it to school. I guess just what does that do in terms of your lineup and having those guys, now be here for a couple of years and in terms of building that depth?
Well, that depth is huge. I mean, getting some of those special players to school was a big part of that 5-round draft. I mean, in other years, you could have seen a Jackson Fristow be taken, Kellum Clark be taken, Mikey Tepper be taken. I mean, Cade Smith, we have some of our pitchers there that we could have lost, going in. So, adding those guys in, the tough part about our league is our entire league benefited from that. So there's great players that came in all the way across the league. So it's a little bit of an equalizer. But, I think as you look across and see college baseball, because of these new draft changes, is going to get stronger and be a better product. But it's going to be a lot of talent. And I think it shows a lot for how college baseball as a whole is developing talent and getting talent into professional baseball. That I think it's, kids are coming out and they're ready to play.
That'll do it. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys. We'll see y'all soon.